suffered by Australia's biggest tourist attraction.
Scientists say the Great Barrier Reef was forever changed by a catastrophic marine heatwave in 2016. A 2-year study of the extreme weather found the southern reef was mostly untouched, but many coral communities up north died instantly in the hot water.
They didn't die slowly of starvation. They died directly of heat stress. They cooked because the temperatures were so extreme.
That ABC News report, featuring Professor Terry Hughes, followed on from his shocking study published in Nature last week, which revealed that almost a third of the Great Barrier Reef suffered catastrophic coral dieback in the Great Bleaching of 2016. Hughes' 2-year survey found that 2/3 of the coral on that 1/3 of the reef is now dead and unlikely to grow back for a decade or more. And he had this warning for the future.
The incidence of coral bleaching around the world is increasing, driven by global warming.
But there was much less alarm over this bad news and very little fanfare at The Australian, which gave the story this strange headline.
Not all scientists agree on cause of Great Barrier Reef damage.
And which opened up with this first paragraph from Environment Editor Graham Lloyd.
The ecology of a third of the Great Barrier Reef had been transformed by coral bleaching by 2016 and may never fully recover. But not all scientists were prepared to say that climate change was definitely to blame.
Well, no doubt that's true. Unanimity is hard to find. But Professor Hughes, who's a world expert on coral bleaching, was blaming climate change, and a bunch of experts were on record agreeing with him. So, who did The Australian find to disagree?
Jochen Kampf, an oceanographer in the College of Science and Engineering at Flinders University, said the claimed link between the 2016 heatwave and global warming has no scientific basis.
The Australian took Kampf's comment from SciMex, the Science Media Exchange, which offered reaction to the Nature study from 7 experts in the field, of which Dr. Kampf was the only one not to give resounding support to Hughes' conclusions. But it wasn't just The Australian that seized on Kampf's claim, with News Corp's Cairns Post also using a turbocharged version of the quote to lead their story.
Link between Great Barrier Reef bleaching and global warming has no scientific basis. Researcher.
So, does Jochen Kampf not believe in man-made global warming? Well, actually, yes, he does. In fact, in August 2016, he was one of 154 scientists who signed an open letter to Malcolm Turnbull, calling on the Australian government
to tackle the root causes of an unfolding climate tragedy and do what is required to protect future generations and nature, including meaningful reductions of Australia's peak carbon emissions and coal exports while there is still time.
That famous open letter cited soaring global temperatures, a rise in greenhouse gas levels, an increase in extreme weather events, including in Australia, and an increase in acidity affecting coral reefs as major causes of concern. So, what was Kampf actually trying to say about this latest reef study? Well, it is a far more technical point than the Cairns Post or the Australian made it out to be, because Dr. Kampf told MediaWatch,
technically, one cannot link an observed heatwave that lasted only several weeks to global warming, which requires measurements over a much longer time span.
But he then went on to say that the coral bleaching of 2016 was serious and sad, and that
global warming via ocean acidification in conjunction with marine heatwaves, such as that observed in 2016, poses a severe threat to the health of the Great Barrier Reef. Hence, more effort is required to protect this important region.
Now that is not the message you'd have got from the Cairns Post headline, which Dr. Kampf described as grossly misleading, or indeed from the Australian. But no surprises there, because both have form for downplaying the reef's grief. Back in 2016, for example, the Australian ignored 2,500 of the world's coral reef experts who were warning that
coral reefs are threatened with complete collapse under rapid climate change.
In their place, it unearthed a scientist who specialises in bird migration who disagreed with the 2,500 experts, and they ran with the headline,
"The bleaching of parts of the reef is dividing the scientific world."
And last year, when the Great Barrier Reef Authority's dire warning about the impact of coral bleaching was making news around the world, the Australian also failed to report it in the paper. At least this time they've covered the story, but they just couldn't resist twisting it for their readers.